My ex-wife learned the hard way to not ignore a court summons. First, some context. I was married to a lady for 15 years before divorcing her because she slept with other men. While it took me 6 years to realize this, she worked from home. I traveled 2 hours each way into town. I attribute it to her being either a sociopath or a narcissist, or both. Why not? She had the ability to switch on and off the charm, as well as tell falsehoods right in front of your eyes. In hindsight, everything seems clear. Let's call her V, short for Voldemort, since I referred to her as she who must not be named after we split up and the term stayed with all my friends and family. During our marriage, my ex and I were great friends with another couple, whom we'll refer to as Sam and Marie in this essay. Sam was, and continues to be, my best buddy. V's best friend was Marie. Marie had discovered V's intentions to cheat on me before I did and warned V that she couldn't condone adultery and that their friendship would end if V did cheat on me. No, Marie didn't tell me, and I don't blame her for that. V was having a Facebook affair. If you're going to have an online affair, don't do it while married to a computer expert. With this fellow in CA, we lived in MA. And it was only 2 weeks before V was flying him out and putting him up in a hotel for 3 days. I spent those 2 weeks putting together a lawyer, a private investigator, and an escape plan. I left her the weekend following their hotel stay. She would spend the days with him and come home for the afternoon/evening without a trace of regret in her conduct. The PI having taken photos and video of them leaving the hotel, eating lunch together, and returning to the hotel. I first remained at Sam and Marie's in-law basement apartment before relocating to a modest flat back in town where V resided. After 9 months, I'm divorced from V. Why it was so short to divorce is another tale worthy of this subreddit. We still had one kid, let's call her Rebecca. She was 13 at the time, between us, and we're attempting joint custody and live about a quarter mile away. There are additional children from the marriage, but they were living separate from us at the time and have no role in this portion of the tale. We had bought a lake property during the marriage and had it up for sale, and we had agreed to divide the revenues in the divorce agreement, but paying half the mortgage on that plus the rent on my apartment was really pulling me thin financially. Marie sends me an email with the subject line, "V just tried to get me fired." To cut a long tale short, V contacted Marie's supervisor, alleging that Marie was chatting about V during sales calls with clients, but her boss knew it was BS and told V so. Marie was astute in not wasting time waiting to see what would happen next. That day, she went to the local courts and filed an anti-harassment order against V. It took numerous court appearances for V to tell the judge her side of the tale, since she opted to disregard several summons to court. Because V failed to appear in court, the judge eventually issued the injunction. During this period, V contacted 911 on me 3 times, once alleging I had planted a letter bomb in her mailbox and twice claiming I had broken into her apartment without her consent. I was accused of sending a letter bomb because I had posted a link to shipyearandmsglitter.com on Facebook months previously and then sent her a large bundle of paperwork to sign. When the cops arrived, I had to go to V's apartment and open the letter in front of them. It goes without saying that there was no glitter, much alone a bomb. Surprisingly, this charge came only days after a real bomb threat was made to the town hall. That's amusing. I had gone inside her apartment twice, both times to drop off Rebecca's book bag, which she had left at my flat. V texted me both times, giving me permission to open the door and place the book bag just inside. She'd then contact me after I'd done so, attempting to remove my approval. V still believes that if she deletes a message on her end, the message gets erased on my. Even though kids will be kids and Rebecca did leave her book bag at my house at least once more, I did not fall for V's trick a third time. Rebecca and I met midway between the residences to give the neglected book bags. Various small kid wellness checks on nights when I had Rebecca at my apartment were also included in the multiple 911 calls. It's a lot of fun trying to explain to your kid why the cops are turning up at 8:00 p.m. to see whether she's all right. V was basically trying to get me irritated and respond negatively. Sam and Marie have been lifesavers to me and Rebecca during this ordeal. They host and prepare weekly family meals for us, They are Rebecca's godparents, and they are absolutely rock solid in their support and tolerance of the situation. V filed for sole custody around this time. I insisted on a guardian ad litem gal being appointed to represent Rebecca's best interests, despite the fact that she was a small child. Of course, the parents must pay the GAL expenses. My finances are starting to worry me at this point, so I send V an email stating we need to lower the price of the lake home and sell it regardless of profit. I wanted that burden off my back so I could continue to afford to live in a place where I could co-parent Rebecca and fight the custody case. So here I am, spiraling further into debt, unable to pay rent or mortgage in the long run, while V begins yet another legal fight for full custody. I had no option but to move back in with Sam and Marie in order to continue paying my lawyer and fighting. About a week after I've moved back in with Sam and Marie, Rebecca informs me that V's glass patio table was destroyed the night before. I was in New Hampshire with witnesses that evening, so it couldn't have been me. I was paying for Rebecca's mobile phone, and we had Life 360, so we could always know where each other was due to V's previous threat to take the two youngest kids and go to CA to be with them from Facebook, plus it had history, so I could at least establish my phone was in NH. Rebecca tells me she knows I was in New Hampshire and that she'll tell her mother it wasn't me. Next day, I was issued with a restraining order saying that I had ruined V's patio furniture and that she was still terrified as a result of the letter bomb event. The cops knew it was, but the judge had no knowledge of the incident when V filed the RO and had to take her at her word. The RO was for 10 days, after which I may go in court and dispute the continuation. The officer who served the RO indicated that he was required to seize any guns and licenses. While I did have a newly obtained Class A concealed carry license from a couple's guns course that V had given me as an anniversary present the previous year, I didn't have any firearms other than Rebecca's BB pistol. The officer smiled as he walked away with just the Class A license, saying he was very confident I wasn't going to go on a BB gun spree. The following day, I went to the police station and requested any incident reports involving me since I left her. I was aware of 7 incidences, but the desk sergeant told me that V had reported 19 incidents. He chatted to me for a while, obviously trying to figure out what type of person I was and what was going on. We parted ways with him telling me that the patrol officers would now know what was going on, and that the PD would do the right thing as long as I maintained my calm. That's okay. Sam, Marie, and I are sitting on their porch 2 nights before the court hearing to oppose the RO, sipping beer and planning what I'm going to say to the judge. I'm a little disheartened since I know it'll be a he said she said issue, and I live in Massachusetts. When it comes to parental rights in Massachusetts, if your chromosomes do not match, you are treated as a second-class citizen. V also deserves an Oscar for her portrayal of the victim. It didn't look good. My only hope was that V would decide that the RO was enough to make me seem bad to the GAL and not show up, allowing the RO to expire. Hey, let me see the RO, Marie remarked abruptly. I presented it to her. This is my judge, by the way. She's the one who issued the anti-harassment order on V. You're joking, Sam and I exchanged astonished looks. I promise it's true. Allow me to go grab it. Marie enters and returns a few minutes later with her court order. It is indeed the same judge. My smile was so wide it seemed like it was going to tear my lips. I knew precisely what I had to do now. Now we get to the heart of the narrative. The court date for contesting the RO has come, and I'll be there first thing in the morning by myself. He didn't have a lawyer since he had to appear in court elsewhere. I thought V wouldn't show up, but she did, with someone other than her divorce lawyer, and before court started, her new lawyer approached me and offered to let the no-contact order expire in exchange for a do-not-abuse order. I gently refused her offer, noting that I had done nothing to justify either order and that I wanted the court to hear my case. V's lawyer was taken aback by this for a while, then shrugged and strolled back to where V was seated, as if to say, "It's your funeral." We appeared before the judge, and V told her side of the story while I began telling mine, introducing all of the incident reports from the police department, but V and her lawyer didn't have copies of all of them. So the judge sent us back to the gallery to await the second call while V and her lawyer reviewed the reports. When we were called back, the judge began to go through the substance of the police reports, which I indicated was largely immaterial, but she persisted on going over them. V highlighted 2 incidences in which I briefly visited V's flat with her consent, but she portrayed them as my doing so without her permission. I said that if required, I would be able to give the messages for which she granted authorization, but I did not have them with me today. When reviewing the original police report from the night, I discovered the online affair, in which V claimed I had brain lesions. V also attempted to portray me as having multiple personality disorder, as stated to her by our shared primary care physician. His doctor told you this without his permission. The judge questioned, clearly perplexed. Your Honor, yes. He judge was perplexed as he glanced at me. I have a very tight connection with my doctor, and I highly doubt he would breach HIPAA, I said, slowly shaking my head in amazement. She seemed perplexed, but I believe she sensed that V wasn't being completely genuine. I reminded her that my point wasn't the content, but that I thought V was using the courts to harass and intimidate me and make me look bad in front of the GAL, and that this isn't out of character for V because she has an anti-harassment order in place against her. Put there by Your Honor, Your Honor. The judge blinked at that piece of information. I gave her the information and reminded her that V had failed to appear at any of the hearings. As I retold the details of Marie's narrative, the judge's eye squinted more and more, and her scowl deepened. When she turned to face V, her voice was a slow, frigid rage. Do you have an anti-harassment injunction against you? V's voice was little and faint. Your Honor, yes. I wanted to peek at V's face to see how she was reacting, but I kept my gaze fixed on the judge. V was pointed out by the judge. How come you didn't show up to the hearings? V took a breather while she tried to think of an explanation, because I didn't want to be associated with it. But the judge cut her off. I believe it was the tipping moment, because I believe she was about to approve their request for the do not abuse. But she turned to me and stated severely, I think there is a bit of stuff going on both sides, but obviously she wants you to stay out of her apartment. Your Honor, never again. Restraining order terminated, she said, and we were done with a thud of her gavel. Because the RO was cancelled, it was legally impossible for it to occur. I regained my class a concealed carry license the next day and eventually won the custody fight, thanks in part to the termination of the RO, but also to V's continuing progressively bad emotional and verbal treatment of Rebecca. Stay tuned for the next part.